Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar, License to Learn, Using Movies in the Classroom. And we have SWANK Movie Licensing here with us today to help us with our Copyright Unlocked series. On the next slide, you'll meet our team. My name is Brandon Rader, and I am the Music and Theater Arts Consultant. We've got Dr. Stotterman and Dr. Carlin here on the line as well. And Laura is the Dance and Visual Arts Consultant, and our section chief is Lori. So thank you to them for being here as well. On the next slide, you will see our reflection journal. So if you are, regardless of whether or not you are watching this live or in the recording, you will need a copy of this reflection journal to fill out and submit at the end of the webinar with the CEU survey in order to receive your CEU credit. So you will receive the link will take you to a template preview, and so then you'll need to click on the Use Template button on the upper right-hand corner. It's blue, and it makes a forced copy so that you can make your own copy of the journal, turn in later. All right. So the next slide, I believe, has our agenda on it. We're going to play a little Who Did It Better and talk about our conceptual bins for the CR 2.2 copyright and ethics objectives. And then our SWANK friends are going to run us through some scenarios that you will be able to discern whether or not you need a license and take a look at some more resources before we close out. So we'll go ahead and play our little game here. On the next slide, we've got 3 different versions of Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We've got the original book. We've got the 1971 film with Gene Wilder in it. And then we've got the Tim Burton version in 2005. So just in the chat, go ahead and type who did it best. The original book, the 1970s movie, or the 2000s Tim Burton. Looks like got some votes for the 70s. Yeah, if you can, please mute yourself. That'd be great. Just so that we don't get any feedback. Okay. I agree. I totally think that the 1970s movie is best, but everyone has their own opinion, and you got to know all 3, right, in order to make that call. So let's look at the next Who Did It Best. This is more familiar to probably everybody. We've got the original Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet from the 1590s. I read that there was some dissent about when exactly it was written. We've got the 1960s Franco Zeffirelli version that really scandalized the whole world when it first came out. We've got the Baz Luhrmann version from the 90s. And then if you missed it, there was a musical version that came out in May of this past year called Juliet and Romeo. Which one is your favorite? I'm probably the only one who's going to say that the Baz Luhrmann is my favorite, but it really, really is. I love it so much. Yeah. Laura is weighing in that, and Juliet was pretty good too. But, that's Broadway. Great. Wonderful. Well, speaking of Broadway, we're going to look at the last one here. And we've got the original Dear Evan Hansen Broadway version from 2016, the movie, of course, in 2021. But there was a book version that was released in between. And I will say that the book is phenomenal because you actually get to hear from Connor's ghost in the book, which is kind of amazing. So which one was y'all's favorite? I agree, Chris. You cannot beat the original Broadway cast recording of Dear Evan Hansen. It was phenomenal. So, yep, great. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Now that we are thinking about the ways in which we might interact with text and movies, we're going to take a look at our conceptual bins. So this through line is CR 2.2, And all of these objectives form a developmental progression that talks about copyright and ethics. And these can be broken down into 6 different bins. We've got the idea of what's original versus what's copying somebody else's work. We've got how do you share this work. We're going to definitely talk about, sharing and playing somebody else's work today. Attribution and credit, like how do you get permission? How do you give credit? We'll talk about that today. There's copyright vocabulary that is covered in both sixth and in beginning. And then we've got some complex use that's, parody, AI remixing in accomplished. And we take a look at ethics and like, is this the right way to use something in third, seventh, and in intermediate? So we're going to hit 3 of these conceptual bends pretty hard today. If you are interested in learning more about these, on the next page, we have a QR code that takes you to the conceptual bins guide. And this gives you just a little bit more in-depth analysis of what we're actually talking about for these 6 conceptual bins and allows you to kind of take it from there. And again, these links are all hyperlinked into the slide deck, and you can access that through your reflection guide. So, okay, so now that we've laid that groundwork, we're going to go ahead and move forward into looking at some scenarios with SWANK. So I will let Courtney and Jacinda take it from here.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. So my name is Courtney Mack, and I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Jacinda Corsi, and we are here on behalf of Swank Motion Pictures. We're going to spend a lot of time today really diving in to copyright in the K-12 school related to film and movies. To Brandon's point, we're going to talk through a lot of these scenarios, maybe highlight some scenarios of really how films are used for both curriculum support and school rewards and incentives. And really, our goal is that we're arming you guys with the tools to help make these decisions as these movie scenarios pop up throughout the year, either in your classroom or your school. So our goal is that you're going to leave here today feeling a little bit more well-versed in the copyright law as it relates to film. A little bit about me. My name is Courtney Mack, and I've been working here at SWANK in a licensing role for, gosh, a little over 13 years now. I started out in more of a public performance department where I did a lot of licensing for public movie screenings, and then transitioned to work with our K-12 schools for the last 7 years now. So I feel pretty well versed in the copyright law for K-12 schools. My friend Jacinda has actually been working with schools even longer than that. So Jacinda, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Jacinda Corsi, and I've been with Swank for a little over 20 years, but in the K-12 space, doing licensing for schools for about 15 years. About 4 years ago, started working with some more of our streaming customers in schools also. But yeah, just love working with schools. I have 4 kids and have been a parent in PTAs, done a lot of family movie nights, and worked with teachers on just understanding copyright. So excited to be here today to kind of go over copyright and how that works with your schools.
Yes, between us, we have a lot of experience to share with you. Now, I want to kick it off today with something just kind of fun. I always like showing this slide that copyright in schools seems awfully complicated, right? Copyright by nature isn't something that just everyone is well versed in. I think there's certain components of copyright that everyone can kind of wrap their heads around, right? It's pretty common knowledge. You can't go to a movie theater, sit back and just videotape it on your phone and then put it online, right? Everyone kind of can agree that that violates copyright, or that you can't sit at a photocopy machine and copyright a book from cover to cover and then just disperse that out. But there's other things that maybe are not so common. And so movies is one of them. And so I always like to highlight this one as just a fun little one to get us started. But I kind of chatted through agenda. We're really going to chat about the law and dive into what the law says, go into a lot of different scenarios, and then kind of end it today telling you how Swank can help in the event that you guys do need some licensing for these movies. So I'm going to let Jacinda kick it off here and really dive into the law.
Yeah, so the Copyright Act of 1976, which is basically saying anytime you take a film outside your home, that is not in your home in the privacy of your home, a public performance right license is needed. And unless there is an exemption applies. So you must have that permission from the copyright owner for that public performance license from a licensing agency like SWANK. So SWANK is a sole source for all the major Hollywood studios. We also work with many independent studios, but all the major motion pictures in the school market, we are a sole source providing licensing for them. So in the school market, though, there is those exemptions, which kind of make it a little bit of a different scenario. So we're going to talk a little bit about that face-to-face teaching exemption. And so to be able not to need a license, these different criteria all need to be met. So that is a teacher and students are physically present and engaged into face-to-face teaching activities. So in the classroom, the showing taking place in a classroom setting with only the enrolled students, so not in another area of the school, but actually in the classroom. The movie is used as an essential part of the core curriculum that is being taught. So that's another something that would need to be met to be able to consider face-to-face teaching exemption. And then the institution must be accredited nonprofit educational institution. And the movie is being legally obtained as a copy. So all of those need to be met to be able to say that you're meeting those face-to-face teaching exemptions. And those would be the times that a public performance license is not met. Or I'm sorry, is not needed. And so this does make it a little bit different of a space because in other areas that we work with, our company works in parks, in hospitals, on cruise lines, correctional facilities. None of these other spaces have that face-to-face teaching exemption. In all of those spaces, anytime you take the movie outside your home, you need the license. The public performance license is needed. So some schools, we hear a lot like, well, we're a school, the license isn't needed. Well, it's true, you're a school, you are a teacher, and you are using it with your students, but are you meeting all of these criteria below? So this is something we're just going to kind of talk about and dive into a little bit deeper today.
Yeah, Jacinda, all of these exemptions are all 5 criteria. It's really, they're kind of written a little ambiguous at times. And we talk to a lot of our schools and our educators that say, for example, there's a misconception on, well, I can only show 10 minutes of a film in order for it to be aligned with face-to-face teaching exemption. And if you see some of the verbiage on your screen, it doesn't actually call out the minutes or how much of a film you can use in order to be exempt from copyright. It really just says that it's an essential part of the core required curriculum being taught. So a lot of this is really up for a review, right? And so our goal is that we're going to go into some scenarios and kind of chat so you guys can uncover, when a movie scenario comes up on your school property, you kind of are armed with these tools to say, okay, of this exemption, are all of these criteria met? If not, great, we need a license. If they are met, then that would be aligned with this face-to-face teaching. So to kind of dive in here, our first example of do you need a license for that is for the Sound of Music Live with the beautiful Carrie Underwood. But let's just kind of set the stage here. So students will perform selected excerpts from the Sound of Music Live using appropriate vocal technique, stylistic accuracy, and expressive interpretation, demonstrating mastery of musical theater performance practices. This all aligns with NC Music Standard PR1. So I'll give everyone a minute, kind of think through if this for you in your class would using select different sections of this film during class time with this description require licensing. And we're here to tell you that, assuming all of these factors are met, this is a great example of something that does align with that face-to-face teaching exemption. It directly aligns with a state standard. We're using sections of that film directly aligned with that core required curriculum. Now, obviously, we're making some interpretations that this was used during class time and they have a legally obtained copy of this movie. But the actual use case of that film would be something that falls under that face-to-face teaching exemption. Going on to our next example, the wonderful West Side Story, one of my personal faves. So here's a long example here, but to kind of paraphrase, students will analyze and perform some of these dance sequences inspired by West Side Story. They reflect cultural identity, conflict, and community. They're going to then critique how these movement, space, and style with social context and character relationships. Once again, this all aligns with this specific dance standard CN1. And then it goes into kind of highlight what that standard states. So give everyone a minute to kind of unpack this one. It seems to maybe reflect the example that we did prior to this, but this is another example of a fantastic use case of film aligned with that core required curriculum. Once again, assuming that teachers are using this in their classroom setting with only their enrolled students, this is a fantastic example of something that is under that face-to-face teaching exemption and does not require a license. Now, I know we're going to move on to a few more examples where we're going to start now getting into some of this gray space that might make everyone pause. So put on your thinking hats, and we're going to keep going through some of these scenarios here.
So we get a lot of calls about different events that go along with the calendar in the school year. Women's History Month, Black History Month. We're going to do a Read Across America Day. It's Dr. Seuss's birthday, and all those fun activities and just different things, whether it's a history, something that goes with the calendar throughout the year, and we're going to do whether it's a celebration or be in the class. But this one is in celebration of Women's History Month. The entire 5th grade is going to be watching the movie Harriet. Rather than do this in individual classrooms, we are all getting together in the gym theater to watch the movie together. So this is a really good example because a majority of this really would meet most of the educational exemption, but taking this film out of the classroom and putting it into a more public area of the school, the gym, the theater, maybe a cafeteria, this is going to take out that face-to-face teaching exemption, and a license is needed. So this is just a good thing to kind of think about, like you're meeting most of them, but not all of them. So even though it was something for Women's History Month where that this is a learning, this is something that we're not only celebrating, but we're teaching, we wanted to do something curriculum based with the movie, you're moving it from that individual classroom with just the teacher involved to a more public space in the school. So we would say a license would be needed for this. So do I need a license for that when showing ELF? So the Band Boosters are hosting a holiday movie fundraiser in the school gym to raise money for the new band uniforms and equipment. They will be showing ELF and inviting students, their families, and faculty and staff to support the band. So this is usually one that everybody would be on board because it's a fundraising, it's a group that's not teachers, but yes, you do need a license for that. So we do get a lot of calls like, oh, we're fundraising, so we're going to need a license. And really in this scenario, whether they were fundraising or not, the Band Boosters is putting it on. It's a holiday movie. It's in the school gym. So there's just many things right here with this movie that kind of take it out of that face-to-face educational exemption. But it's really fun to show movies for all of these reasons. You know, parent engagement, student engagement, bringing kids back on campus, bringing families back on campus, being able to raise money for Band Boosters or a senior trip or a parent group that's giving back to the school. All of those are great ways to fundraise with a license, but using the light movies in that way would require a license.
Cinda, I'll build on that, and you hit on it, but it's a really important note. There's a common misconception out there that says, well, if I'm not charging admission or if we're not raising money, then we don't need a license. We're showing it at school. And that is incorrect. Even if we are hosting a movie event and we're not charging and it is a free event, if it does not align with all factors of that face-to-face teaching exemption, then licensing is required. So that was an interesting point.
So this is a fun one, Hairspray. Which of these examples would require a license? You know, as part of the preparation for the spring performance, the drama club will be watching Hairspray live after school to get excited about the upcoming audition. So this could be with a teacher, but that's now is more in an advisor role. They're doing a fun club activity. This is after school, again, whether it would really be in that classroom or maybe be in more of a public space at the school, a theater, the gym, a cafeteria that they're watching this movie, but it's after school. It doesn't have anything to specifically do with the curriculum of a class. So this would be a reason that a license would be needed. And these are really fun reasons to show movies. I know at my kids' school, when they're in theater productions, that's fun to either watch the movie, kind of get them excited, get them inspired for that part that they're trying out for, or maybe getting the whole cast together once they've made their spots in that performance to, well, let's now watch the movie and kind of dive in a little deeper to these characters and talk about how this is all going to play out with each person who's now playing those parts. So these are great fun activities, but this is after school with a teacher that's now in a different role than their teaching role, that would require a license for a movie viewing like this.
Yeah, Jacinda, we hear a lot from clubs, and clubs are one of those spaces that can sometimes fall in that gray space. The face-to-face teaching exemption is not necessarily to be the end-all be-all of, well, that's educational and that's not. Because all of these scenarios can be considered educational, right? We're using this, we're watching it, we're doing some interpretations and learning about scenes and lighting techniques, but it all has to do in this example with it is the drama club. It is not a core required class or curriculum. It is after school, Jacinda touched on all those, but clubs are one of those spaces that oftentimes comes up a lot as that gray space. Because once again, it's not just as easy as, well, this is for education and this is not. Are all these different factors being met. So this was an interesting example that we wanted to make sure to highlight because this one comes up a lot for us.
Well, I really appreciated that you brought that one up because that was one of the things that we talked about in our brainstorming session. I was like, now wait a second, because yeah, that's different than just teaching the Do Re Mi song. So I appreciate that.
Yes, this is one, like I said, we hear these ones often. So we wanted to make sure to highlight some of those. And then we talked a little bit with Brandon, but we did want to just highlight a few different things here. We realized that we just gave you a lot of gray space, a lot of, well, this needs a license and this doesn't. So we just kind of wanted to wrap it up with a little bit of a pretty bow to give you a little bit of information on if you were reading through these scenarios today and you thought to yourself, oh gosh, we do some of those, or that's a common scenario in our classroom. The holidays are coming up and Polar Express is going to be shown in my elementary classroom this year. You know, if these are coming up in your school, feel free to reach out to SWANK. This is where we can really help. Here at SWANK, we provide an annual license for schools. Our goal is to make copyright compliance as easy as possible. We realize that it's probably very challenging for a teacher to say, gosh, I'm going to use a movie at 2 p.m. today, and I need to pick up the phone and call SWANK to get a license, but I have 50, seventh graders running around the classroom. So our annual site license is available to schools, and it almost acts as an insurance policy. It just covers a school building and it says, if a movie is used on school property that does fall outside of that face-to-face teaching exemption, then you're covered. So not only does it cover like the big PTA movie nights and fundraisers, but it also covers all those incidental things that just happen throughout the year. The rainy day recess, the aftercare program, the drama club, or if a teacher is showing a film in their classroom and maybe 3 of the 5 factors of that face-to-face teaching exemption are met, and we're getting into some of those gray spaces, it just says, you know what, this is going to remove that evaluation. And it just ensures that no matter when or how those movies are being used throughout the year, you're just covered as a school. To Jacinda's point earlier, we do represent all the major Hollywood studios. And so our license just provides that copyright coverage and protection for your school.
So this is some great ways and just scenarios that our public performance license for schools work really well in those times that a license will always be needed. Those rainy day recesses where you're just trying to kind of contain the kids. They're inside, they should be outside. This is a great way to put on a movie, have some games being played and different other activities also, but that movie's being played. But this is in the classroom with a teacher, but would definitely be more for entertainment. So it would definitely need a license. Aftercare programs, another great scenario that are in schools where you're after school watching movies, putting movies on for holidays. Maybe it's a little bit of a positive behavior. Maybe it's for that later shift of 5 to 6 p.m. pickups where you want to kind of reel everybody in and have a little slow down pace for the end of the day. Those would all be the times our license would work really great covering a school, because aftercare programs are covered also under our license. So it is all showings indoors and outdoors at the school for that school community, which we say for the school community is the students, family, and faculty of that school. So family movie nights, you have a parent group that would love to come in and do some family engagement, and whether they're raising money or just looking at getting a group of kids and families together after school, whether it's in the evening or later in the day, possibly on a Friday afternoon as an early dismissal. All those times a license would be needed, and that annual blanket license we provide to schools would cover those parent group family movie nights. PBIS, positive behavior rewards, we get calls a lot about like, we're going to start implementing these in our school, and we know that we're going to need licensing for this. So can you tell me how our license would work? So this annual blanket license, it's going to cover over 35,000 movies to show unlimited, would cover that PBIS rewards for schools. And holiday celebrations, like to Courtney's point, who's not showing Polar Express in December? It's just a fun, great movie that day before school's out, that holiday party, just kind of a fun thing to do right before you leave for break. Those are all great reasons that the license is needed. And other special events in the spring, like April and May before school is out, throughout the year for different holidays like Halloween or Coco being shown. There's just a lot of different fun reasons to have had that movie licensing in place and know you have that public performance and coverage at your school. So these are just all the things and all the ways that our annual blanket license can help schools. And everything that it covers. So we wanted to kind of go over all those ideas and just kind of share some reasons that the license is needed and can be used. And then just wanted to say thank you for having us today. We've really enjoyed working with Brandon and getting this put together and kind of going through all the different scenarios and why these are great ways of no, you don't need a license, or yes, you do need the license, and kind of just talking to your group about how movies can be used for education, but also for all those fun times too, just for engagement, positive behavior, holiday parties and rewards, and how our licensing. So as Courtney said at the beginning, my name's Jacinda Coursey. I work with schools in the state of North Carolina. And I'd be happy to jump on a call if you have additional questions. There's my email there. We can set up some time and kind of go over how licensing could possibly work for your school.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. So after that primer, I just would love to hear from you guys. How are movies used in your schools? Are you seeing that your schools have similar sorts of uses? Or are there any that, maybe that's a better question. We'll give you a minute to drop into the chat if there are any movie uses that didn't fall into the ones that they described. I'll give you just a few seconds to do that. All right. Well, it looks like you guys already covered everything because you're amazing, and you are the experts. So, as we move forward, I just want to acknowledge that this webinar really focused on teacher actions, but remembering that modeling or ethical digital citizenship is a really important part of us communicating the importance of this CR 2.2 through line to our students. So as you move forward and think about closing out, we are just asking you to reflect on these three questions in a sort of a weather report. Where did the webinar shine some new light for you? What might still be feeling clouded? And what new idea has struck like lightning? please do feel free to reach out to Jacinda or to the DPI team if you have any questions or want to share anything. If you want to celebrate the new light and the new lightning, or want to talk through some cloudy thoughts, just let us know. All right. And on the last slide, we are sharing the CEU certificate information. Please make sure that you visit that URL in order to submit your Google form, upload your reflection journal. And then on our last slide, we have a big thank you. Oh, it was there. Maybe it's not there anymore. That's okay. We just want to say thank you again to the SWANK team for being here today, and you all for joining us as well. If anyone has any questions, please do feel free to drop them into the chat and let us know if there are any other questions. And have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having us.